Hello, welcome back. This session we are focusing on data link protocols. The protocols used to implement different functionalities of this data link layer, especially the flow control and error control. Okay, broadly we can categorize these data link protocols into two categories: elementary data link protocols and sliding window protocols. And here we are focusing on the first category, that is elementary data link protocols. So these are the contents of this session. First we will discuss why we need an error control and flow control in this data link layer. And secondly, what are the different available techniques to implement this error control and flow control. Broadly we have two different categories: elementary data link protocols and sliding window protocols. And here we are focusing on elementary data link protocols. And the main difference between these two types of protocols is that in case of elementary data link protocol, it treats individual frames separately, whereas in case of sliding window protocol, it treats a set of frames together. That's the main difference. And before moving into different protocols, let us have a discussion on the assumptions we made. As you know, the data link layer, when we discuss about the data link layer, both the network layer and physical layer also will come into picture, right? Because data link layer provides some service to network layer by taking the services provided by the physical layer. So assumption here is that the network layer, data link layer and physical layer run as separate processes. Okay, usually this data link layer and physical layer will be there in the network interface card. So the supporting processor inside this network interface card will run this data link layer and physical layer processes, whereas the network layer process will be run on the main CPU. Okay. The second assumption is that machine A wants to send a long bit stream to machine B in a connection oriented way. So there will be always a dedicated path between the machine A and machine B. Machine A always acts as a sender machine, machine B always acts as the receiver, and there is no delay in a stream of bits from machine A to B. Okay, machine A always ready with the data chunk. And the third assumption is that machines do not crash. Okay. Always these two machines will be in functioning condition. The question is why we need error control. We are assuming that both sender and receiver will not crash, and if the channel is also error free, there is no need of error control. But that is not the case, right? The channel will introduce some type of errors in between, especially if we are using some wireless network. And nowadays this wireless network is more common, and so definitely the error control is also more significant nowadays. And what are the different types of errors introduced by this channel? Definitely two types of errors are there. The frame can be damaged or it can be completely lost. Damaged means the data received by the receiver may not be the same as that sent by the sender, right? Some of the bits may be changed. Some ones may be changed into zeros and zeros may be changed into ones. Some extra bits may be added or some other bits may be removed from this data frame. So these are the different cases of damaging, or the entire frame may be lost. That corresponding data may not be received by the receiver. So what types of damages can be there? Usually we can categorize these types of errors into two: single bit errors and burst errors. Single bit errors, a single bit in the data block will be corrected. So this is the data sent and this is the data received. One bit is flipped. Okay. And burst error, a group of bits will be affected or corrupted. So here we can see that a block of bit in which most of the bits are got corrupted. So this length of the block which is got corrupted is called length of the burst. Why we need such a classification is that the burst errors having some advantages. Just for example, if the error rate of the channel is very low, for example, if you are taking fiber optic cable and the type of error is burst error, advantage is that only few of the blocks will be affected, right? Only few of the frames will be affected, right? Because all the errors burst errors. So this errored blocks or errored frames can be retransmitted easily, right? Whereas if the errors are of single bit errors, what's the problem? Most of the errors are scattered all over the frames, right? So majority of the frames may be retransmitted. It is a time consuming process, right? And now how these damaged frames are actually handled. So different error detecting and error correction methods are there. You learned all those things in your data communication paper, right? So we are not discussing all those things here. Let us have a quick recap of the basic techniques. First method is add enough redundant information with each data block or each data frame to detect and correct errors at the receiver. So such codes are called error correcting code. So at the sending side, the data link layer will add extra information so that at the receiver, the data link layer can check for errors, detect errors, and if errors is there, it can also correct errors. Just for example, Hamming code is an example for error correcting codes. So this type of error correction is called forward error correction. Okay. And the second method is add only enough redundancy to detect the errors at the receiver. There is no correction, just detect. Such code is called error detecting code. Example for such a code is CRC. So in the second case, the data link layer will not be able to identify the error. It can just understand there is some error. So it will request for retransmission by the sender. Okay. So where these types of methods are actually used. The first case, error correcting code. So these types of methods can be used if the channel is very noisy. Just for example, if you are using wireless networks, lot of errors will be always there, right? So in that case, it will be better to add some extra information, redundant information to detect and correct errors at the data link layer. Otherwise, we will request for data retransmission. Again, there will be errors introduced in the channel like that. Lot of time will be spent on this retransmission and all. Whereas in the second case, that is detect errors and retransmission. This can be used for reliable channels like fiber optic cable. In that case, the number of errors or chance of error will be less, right? So for one or two errors, we need not compromise the data size. For if we are adding this error correcting code, the size of the data pack will be more. The number of redundant bits to be added will be more, right? So in this that case, reliable channels like fiber optics, we can use this error detecting codes. So only one or two frames need to be retransmitted. Okay. Now the next question is why we need flow control. The first reason is that both sender and receiver have limited speed. Let's take the case of client-server interaction. Let us assume that the sender is the server and client is the receiver. Okay, server will be a high-end machine, can send data continuously, right? Whereas the receiver may not be a high-end machine, maybe a low-end machine. It may not be able to process all this data received from the server simultaneously, right? So definitely some of the data packets may be lost. So what are the actions to be taken in a common data link layer? It have to take the data from this physical layer, right? It have to compute the checksum and all. Then it have to find out whether there is error. If it is to be corrected, it should perform the correction. And after that, the header and trailer part need to be removed, right? Then it should be handed over to the network layer. This much processing is there. This much time should be provided for that, right? Then only it can access the next data frame. Okay. And the second thing is that both sender and receiver have limited storage capacity. So this data to be processed which are in queue may be stored in the memory buffer inside the receiver and sender, right? And these buffers may have a limited storage capacity. So if no frame arrives beyond this buffer capacity, this receiver may be forced to drop that or discard that frame. Okay, so that is also a reason for flow control. Now what are the different protocols available in the data link layer to solve these two different problems? Those are error control and flow control. Actually this protocol provide a combination or provide this flow control and error control in an integrated way. So we will see different protocols in this session. First protocol is actually an unrestricted simplex protocol. It assumes that there is no buffer limits, there is no error in the channel. Completely unrealistic protocol, but for theoretical background, we are just going through the first protocol first. And the second one is simplex stop and wait protocol. Here we are just introducing one restriction that there is a buffer storage capacity is limited. In that case, how can we implement this flow control? And the third one is we assume that channel is also noisy. Okay. So these are the different three protocols we have to discuss on the elementary data link protocols. So let us think about the first one, that is unrestricted simplex protocol. The assumption taken here is that data are transmitted in only one direction. That's why it is called simplex protocol. Always one machine acts as the sender and the second machine acts as the receiver. And the second assumption, both transmitting and receiving network layers are always ready. So at the sender, it can always get a data packet or data packet from the network layer, and the receiver, whenever this data layer want to hand over the packet to the network layer is ready to receive. That is another assumption. And processing time can be ignored. As and when data frame is received by the data link layer, it can process with no time. That is another assumption. And infinite buffer space is available. Even though it's quite impractical, we are just assuming that the buffer space is infinite. And also channel is error free. There is no error in the channel. So using these assumptions, how this flow control protocol can be implemented. And this is the procedure at the sender side. Okay, so it runs an infinite while loop. What happens inside the loop? It first waits for an event to occur. What type of event? Yeah, it's waiting for a packet from the network layer. Okay, and whenever it receives a packet from the network layer, this will be invoked, get data. It will receive the packet, and from that packet it will make a frame by attaching header, trailer part, etc. Then send the frame, hand over it to the physical layer. Then it will be passed over the physical media to reach the destination. Okay, there is no need of computing checksum and all, because we are assuming that the channel is error free, right? And at the receiver, that also runs a infinite while loop. It's all initially waiting for something to happen. What happened? What to be happened? Yeah, it's waiting for some data stream from the physical layer. So whenever it receives a notification, it just receives a frame from the physical layer. From the frame, it will extract the data packet, right? Removing the header and trailer. There is no need of computing the checksum, right? Because there is no such requirement in the link. Then deliver the data to the network layer. That's all in this flow control mechanism using the simplest or simplex protocol. And the second type of protocol is that we are introducing some restriction, that is buffer space is limited. Our storage capacity of the sender and receiver is limited. In that case, and also we are assuming that limited processing speed. Each sender and receiver needs some time to process the data packet. Okay, some more realistic requirements are added here. So how to prevent the sender from flooding the receiver? That's the question here. Okay. Solution is receiver provides a feedback to the sender. So each time the sender sends a data frame to the receiver, it can send the next frame only after receiving an acknowledgement or consent from the receiver. This is the solution we are using. So sender can send the next frame only after receiving the acknowledgement for the previous frame. Okay, so this is how the flow control is implemented in the second protocol. So that is why it is called stop and wait. After sending one frame, stop, wait for the acknowledgement. After getting the acknowledgement, it can send the next frame. So this is how the stop and wait protocol works. At the sender machine, we have the network layer. From the network layer, we are receiving the data link layer, receiving a data packet and make it a frame and send the frame to the physical layer, right? Over the physical link, it will be traveling to the receiver machine. At the receiver machine, it is received by the physical layer. Okay, remove the trailer and header part, deliver the data to the network layer, and after that, the data link layer will send an acknowledgement frame back to the sender. Okay, and that will be received by the physical layer. From that, it will be received by the data link layer. Then only it can send the second frame. This is stop and wait protocol. So you can see the corresponding pseudocode here. Okay, first it will check this variable whether I can send something. So this is an infinite loop in which first condition is that can I send something? Yeah. If it is true, only it have to wait for something, right? So it will take a data packet from the network layer, make a frame, send frame. Okay. So after sending the first frame, it makes the cancel value as false, so that it cannot send anymore until it receives an acknowledgement. Okay, then it wait for an event. What type of event it wait for? Yeah, it wait for acknowledgement packet received from the physical layer, right? Yeah, if it receives such a notification, receive the corresponding acknowledgement, then set the cancel values true. You can send the next frame. That is the sender side procedure. And at the receiver side, first it wait for some data from the physical layer, right? Yeah, if it receives data, it receives the corresponding frame, extract the data part as a packet, deliver the data to network layer, then send a frame to whom? To the physical layer, through which it can send the corresponding acknowledgement to the sender. This is a send frame operation. So this is stop and wait protocol. So this is how the data flow. Okay, the sender first send a frame, then upon receiving this frame, the receiver will send back an acknowledgement. Upon arriving this acknowledgement, it can send the next data packet. This is how the stop and wait protocol proceeds. And next, the third protocol. So the third protocol is simplex protocol for a noisy channel. So the second protocol, we assume that the processing speed is limited, memory capacity is limited, but there is no error in the channel, right? And we are removing that restriction also in the third protocol. We assume that channel is noisy. In that case, how this flow control can be provided. So if the channel is noisy, what happens? In between the data may be lost, right? Here you can see an example. A data sent by the sender is lost in between. It's not received by the receiver. So a receiver won't respond, right? So sender can send the next frame only if it receives an acknowledgement from the receiver. So it have to wait indefinitely. How to solve this problem? Using timer, right? Timer. The sender at the time of sending data, it will set a timer also, depending on the transmission time, the processing time, and the traveling time of the acknowledgement back to the sender. All these times together will be calculated. Based on that, the timer value will be set by the sender. And if there is no acknowledgement within this timer expire time, the assumption, the sender can understand that the corresponding data is lost, I have to retransmit it. Okay, so sender could send a frame, receiver would send an acknowledgement frame only if the data were correctly received, and in case of damaged frame, sender would eventually time out and send the frame again. So this is the timeout period. After this, sender will again retransmit the data, and for that the acknowledgement is received correctly, so that sender can send the next frame. This is a simplex protocol for noisy channel. And one fatal flaw is there. You can see that if the acknowledgement is lost, okay, the data is correctly received at the receiver, but the corresponding acknowledgement is lost. What happens? The sender will time out again, right? Assuming that the data is not received at the receiver, and sender will again send the data, right? What happens? The receiver will receive duplicate frames. Okay, you can see here the sender send data packet. It is correctly received at the receiver and it is handed over to the network layer here. And it sends an acknowledgement back to the sender, but it is lost. Sender timeouts, it again retransmit the data. Okay, so what happened? The same frame is received twice. So duplicates are there. How to remove this or how to solve this duplicate problem? Solution is using sequence number. Okay, each data frame will be sequentially numbered. So just two consecutive frames having such issues, right? And so we can have just a single bit as a sequence number. First frame can be numbered as 0 and the second frame can be numbered as 1. Okay, so using sequence numbers we can solve this issue. So these types of protocols in which the sender waits for a positive acknowledgement from the receiver, that is called stop and wait ARQ. Okay, ARQ stands for automatic repeat request. The sender can proceed only if it receives a positive acknowledgement from the receiver. Such protocols are called IRQ protocols. So you can see here two values are used for the sequence number. Okay, 0 and 1 are used. First frame will be numbered as frame 0 and it is received properly by the receiver. So the receiver also will keep track the serial number, sequence number. Okay, so R equal to 0, it received frame 0 and it sends an acknowledgement. You can see the frame number here, sequence number here is 1. That means it next expects frame 1. That's the meaning of this 1 here. Okay, it received frame 0, it expects for frame 1. Okay, so the sender sending the second frame 1. Unfortunately, this frame is lost. You can see here. So what happens after some time, the sender will time out, will send the same frame again, right? Now upon receiving the frame, it will send an acknowledgement back. So without any duplicates, it can solve this problem. And suppose there is a case that this acknowledgement ACK1 is lost. What happens? Sender will time out, then sender will send this frame 0 again, right? Frame 0 will be sent again. But the receiver can see that, yeah, I have already received this frame 0, right? So this is a duplicate frame, so it will be just discard. Okay, so this is how the duplicates will be eliminated in the case of stop and wait ARQ. So in the next session we will see the sliding window protocols in details. Thank you.